Please join me in welcoming Professor Michele, Deputy Vice Chancellor of Academic and Research Affairs, the Dean of the School of Medicine, the Professor of Surgery of Global Health Equity, Professor Michele.
Thank you very much, Kathleen, for the very kind introduction. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us at this very important webinar that myself and the College of Surgeons of East Central and Southern Africa hold very close to our hearts. And as our time-tested partner, ACS and the AWS, we are very privileged to be part of this webinar. So welcome, everyone. Before I invite our distinguished speakers to this webinar, I would like to say a few words about who we are as COSEXA and what the partnership, the scholarship actually means. So I will be sharing my screen with you. So let me say a few words about who we are as COSEXA. The College of Surgeons of East Central and Southern Africa, COSEXA, is a consortium of 14 constituent African countries and 6 we call them partner countries that constitute the college. It was established in 2001 as a continuation of the Association of Surgeons of East Africa, which has been in existence in Africa for the past more than 60 years. It is established with the aim of helping Africa catch up with its significant deficit of the surgical workforce. We call ourselves as a college without borders. That is, we do not try to build hospitals, we don't try to build institutions, and we don't hope to own infrastructure in the African countries, but we hope to utilize a human and capital resources that exist in the continent. At the moment, we have more than 125 accredited hospitals across the 18 African countries. And 64% of our hospitals are found outside of capital cities and outside of major cities. We have about 800 trainees at the moment and up 400 plus accredited trainers across these 126 hospitals. Traditionally, once we give accreditation, it lasts for about 5 years, and hospitals and programs seek reaccreditation every 5 years to continue their training. As I said, the college was started in 2001. And in 2002, we administered the very first examination, 7 candidates at the second year level and 6 as final year. From a total of 13, last year we graduated 281. So this has been a huge success in terms of the number of graduates we have produced. In total, we have reached 1,961 over the past about 20 years. And again, in terms of graduates, the number is increasing significantly. We have graduated about 557 surgeons totally, from 0 in 2002 and 2003. So this has been a very huge success for the college so far. And we are also very happy to see that 93% of our graduates, all our programs remained in the region, in the East and Central African region. This is, in fact, a direct proof that providing good training, appropriate training for young people, help them remain in their areas of training. This brings me to the collaboration between our college, COSEXA, the American College of Surgeons, and the Association of Women Surgeons. This partnership is a result of some friendly discussions, collegial discussions between friend surgeons in these 3 institutions. One thing led to another, discussions led to further discussions, and we ended up designing the ACS, AWS COSEXA scholarship. It started in 2017 with just 7 candidates, 7 women candidates who were ready to sit for the exams that year, and eventually matured in 2019 to enroll track 1 and what we call track 1 and track 2 candidates. Track 1 are candidates who join the FCS training programs, and track 2 are those that graduate from the fellowship training program. This has an increase in the number of women trainees and in the increase in the number of women graduates from the program. And these are the recipients so far. This scholarship has now reached out to about 75 women trainees and graduates in the region, mainly from general surgery, orthopedic surgery, and pediatric surgery, and totally 75. This is not including the recipients of this year. And as you can see, almost all COSEXA countries have been beneficiaries of the scholarship program, and hopefully this will keep on increasing for the coming future. And as I indicated, this scholarship in particular has been the reason why our number of female trainees and female graduates has significantly increased. As you can see from this graph, since 2017, our number of female trainees has significantly increased, and our number of female graduates has exponentially increased. And the AWS scholarship has been instrumental in achieving such a beautiful end at the end of exams and graduations. At this juncture, please allow me, on behalf of the COSEXA President and the Council, to extend our official thank you and appreciation to the American College of Surgeons and Association of Women Surgeons for this great partnership. I would like to pause here, and at this juncture, would like to introduce one of our distinguished speakers. I would like to introduce Dr. Hilary Sanfi, who is the president of the Association of Women Surgeons and one of our, I must say, partners in North America, and a very close, I would like to call her a friend of mine, but a very close friend and supporter of COSEXA. Professor Sanfi, please continue. Thank you.
Professor Bekele, thank you very much for your welcome and your kind comments, although I have to tell you, I'm a past president of the Association of Women Surgeons, and this has been a wonderful partnership for us with COSEXA, and thank you for everything that you have done personally to advance the support the careers of women surgeons in Africa. So over the last few years, we have seen the beginnings of zero tolerance for sexual harassment and discrimination, thanks in part to prominent social movements such as #MeToo and #TimesUp that have brought violence against women into the spotlight. And this image from the New Yorker highlighted women as surgeons and sparked an international movement. So HeForShe is a United Nations initiated solidarity campaign for the advancement of gender equality that encourages all individuals to act as change agents and to take action against negative stereotypes and behaviors. Now, while a formal HeForShe movement is a recent development, women of my generation never knew other women surgeons while we were in training, or indeed while we were junior faculty. And we owe much of our success to the enlightened men who supported us at a time when it was not necessarily popular to do so. So one of my first champions was the late Professor David Boucher-Hayes at RCSI, who recommended me for a research fellowship in the lab of Dr. John Cameron, the former chair of Johns Hopkins. And this was an experience which laid the foundation of my hepatobiliary career. Dr. Cameron's support was important in obtaining a number of positions since then, including one at the University of Virginia, where the chair was Orr Scott Jones. And Dr. Jones became a champion in promoting my participation in the college. My interest in transplant surgery and more recently in surgical education was championed by Professor Oscar Traynor. Now, in the last 25 years or so, I have been fortunate through the Association of Women Surgeons to meet several women who have been mentors and friends, such as Dr. Patricia Newman and Dr. Barbara Bass. So however, this concept of men supporting women has been around for some time. Prominent international male leaders have recognized the importance of supporting women to achieve sustainable access to healthcare. The late Kofi Annan, former United Nations Secretary General, said, "Gender equality is a precondition for meeting the challenge of reducing poverty, promoting sustainable development, and building good governance. There is no tool for development more effective than the empowerment of women." The relevance to surgery is apparent from the key messages in the seminal 2015 Lancet Commission report, indicating that the world's poorest countries, where a third of the world's people live, are the countries with both the highest burden of surgical disease and the fewest surgeons. In this figure, the darker the color, the higher the proportion of the population without access to safe surgery. On average, there's only one surgeon per 200,000 people in LMICs, and much of the surgery is performed by non-medical or non-surgical specialists. Where qualified surgeons do exist, they practice predominantly in urban areas. And this slide shows the increase needed to meet the Lancet Commission target of 20 surgeons per 100,000 of the population by 2030. The number needed increases as you move from yellow to orange through red. So countries need to train an additional 19 surgeons per 100,000 of the population in order to meet the target. So this quotation detailing how gender inequality is transformed into health risk is from one of the many excellent contributions to a 2019 Lancet theme issue aimed at advancing gender equity, concluding that to achieve meaningful change, this must be directed at transforming the systems within which women work. And I would strongly commend this to your attention. So as the former president of the World Bank, Dr. Jim Young Kim, stated, surgery is an indivisible, indispensable part of healthcare. Until and unless our development investments value, compensate, count, and are accountable to half the world's population, i.e. the female half, we will fail in our efforts to end extreme poverty and build prosperous and sustainable societies. Women and their families deserve less. So access to women surgeons is especially vital in populations where women may be more comfortable in seeking healthcare from other women due to cultural norms. But no matter where you travel in the world, women surgeons remain outnumbered by their male counterparts. And regardless of geographical location, women in surgery face many of the same barriers. So with regard to these barriers, women progress through the academic ranks more slowly than men, begin their careers with fewer resources, receive significantly lower salaries than their male counterparts, and are subject to both implicit and explicit bias. Also, traditional gender roles impose on women the major share of family duties. Various metaphors have been coined to illustrate obstacles to women's advancement. The glass ceiling refers to the invisible barrier that women face when trying to positions, while the stick floor refers to the faced by more junior women to get their careers off the first place. The month is optimistic in its acknowledgement that women can succeed and realistic in indicating that there will be obstacles. So some women reach high levels of leadership, yet the twists and turns of the maze present challenges that some will be unable to navigate and may get stuck in dead ends. Others may succeed by persisting after experiencing setbacks, practicing a new way, or by following the crumbs of those who went before. Now, women also need to support other women. And one of the most important influences in my life has been the Association of Women Surgeons. Founded in 1981 by Dr. Patricia Newman, what began as a small group of women surgeons meeting for breakfast during the clinical congress has now grown to an organization of over 3,000 people with members in more than 40 countries. AWS has several international partners listed here, including COSECSA and including Women in Surgery Africa. So Women in Surgery Africa, which operates under the COSEXA umbrella, was established in 2015 in partnership with AWS and the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland. Since 2016, the AWS Foundation has provided travel grants to enable women surgeons from LMICs travel to the annual COSEXA and WISA meetings, which are held concurrently. And this will be the 4th year that the AWS Foundation partnered with the COSEXA College of Operation Giving Back Women's Scholars Program. And as Professor Bekele indicated, the Track 1 pays the $500 fee necessary to allow trainees who pass the membership exam to do their training. And the Track 2 program is $2,500 towards completion of training and fees for the final exam. The AWS Foundation has supported 50% of the total cost for this program to date and is committed to supporting it in the immediate future. And the AWS Foundation is proud to have played a part in helping COSEXA exceed its target of graduating 500 surgeons by 2020. And we note that 35 of the total graduates are Women Scholars Awardee, which speaks to the success of this program. So as Professor Bekele indicated, 93% of COSEXA graduates remain on the African continent. This 2017 publication in the World Journal from COSEXA and RCSI authors, based on early data, suggests that compared with men, higher percentages of women remain in the country of training and in Africa, providing additional support to the argument that we need to train more women surgeons. So finally, in conclusion, the recruitment and retention of women surgeons is essential in order to ensure global access to safe surgery. Effective strategies to increase the number of women in surgery include gathering and regularly reporting gender-based data on outcomes, attrition, barriers, etc., so that these can be addressed and overcome. Increasing the visibility of women surgeons to encourage medical students to consider a career in surgery, not only encouraging male surgeons to recruit and sponsor women surgeons, but recognizing and rewarding male champions for their efforts and their support. And we need to continue the fight against gender discrimination, sexual harassment, and bullying against both men and women. And we should never forget that improving the surgical environment benefits both men and women. So it just remains for me to thank the International Relations Committee for the invitation and the college. And now I will over to Dr. Precious.
Thank you, Professor Sanfi. Let me just jump in. And as you said, we need to acknowledge our predecessors and our partners to attract more women to join the field of surgery. At this juncture, I would like to thank Professor Sherry Rain, one of the members of the AWS, who has been a huge supporter of COSEXA, not only in this scholarship, but being member of several committees, writing exams, partnering in exams, and several others, including Dr. Patricia Newman, who's a regular examiner for the college, and other members of the AWS. And let me also remind all participants to use the Q&A box to submit your questions so that panelists can respond to your questions at the end. I would like now to introduce Dr. Precious Mutambanengwe from Zimbabwe. She's a pediatric surgery senior registrar at the Salim Mugabe Children's Hospital. And she's the vice president of the Pediatric Surgery in Zimbabwe Club and a member of WISA, Women in Surgery in Africa, the Zimbabwe chapter rep. And she's also a mentor for Let's Connect for Aspiring Female Surgeons group. Dr. Precious, is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Prof. Hillary, I'm a huge fan. You'll see you will feature in some of my slides as well. Can we go to the next slide, please, Tony? So as you heard, I'm a pediatric surgery senior registrar, meaning I've qualified and I'm now just working towards my consultancy. The hospital where I work at, Salim Mugabe Central Hospital, is a tertiary hospital, and it receives children from all across the country, as it's the only center where we have pediatric surgery specialists housed in the public sector. So imagine how busy our center is. And for us, most of our clientele are those who come from from low backgrounds, and most of our clients do not have a lot of resources or finances. Next slide, please. We have a team of pediatric surgeons. From this image, we were just about to start a separation of a pair of conjoined twins. And as you can imagine, it's such a great accomplishment for a center in the middle of Africa to be doing such work and in such resource limited settings. And each and every person in this team works together, and I'm honored to work with these people, and each and every one of them has had a hand in molding me to become what I am, from the consultants to the juniors behind me. They themselves also inspire me because they're always pushing me, asking me hard questions. So I need to stay on top of my game. And also they encourage me to be a better surgeon, because I'm also supposed to help them become a better surgeon. So as they look at me for inspiration, I'm then also inspired to be better. Next slide, please. I'm a mother of 2 boys, and as you can imagine from the 2 images, it's quite a handful. From trying to be Instagram ready to the actual final picture, there's a lot of input and energy that's involved. So this in itself presents a challenge. As a woman, we have many, many things that we need to do. You need to get your family ready for school. You need to get them ready for the day. The house chores, or you just get your mind ready for the time. Next slide, please. Luckily for me, I have a very supportive husband, and my biggest challenge as I was training was the biological clock. For us women, it seems to tick louder than it does for men. And when it ticks and you can't ignore it anymore, you're sometimes supposed to make the tough decision of actually having your family while you are in the process of writing exams. So for me, my husband was also a huge pillar in that he was very hands-on. He'll take care of the baby, let me sleep, and sometimes he would actually help study. We're like juggling the children. Next slide, please. So when I received the scholarship, it came as a huge relief, because now I no longer had to juggle the looking for the finances for me to be able to write my exams, and then looking for expenses to be able to go write the exams. So the scholarship awarded me that, it afforded me the luxury, so to speak, to study while also concentrating on my family without having to look for finances. At the same time, being awarded the scholarship, I got the opportunity to meet my peers from other countries who were also coming to write these exams. And it also enabled me to network with other people from across the COSECSA countries. Next slide, please. And in this picture, we have the other female pediatric surgeons and that who also wrote the exams with me. What I want to highlight with this picture is the more women that join surgery, the more we dispel certain myths that are there about how a surgeon is supposed to look. Before, it was thought surgeons in general, especially women, had to be butch or had to be tomboys to fit in. But as you can see from this picture, there's a variety of characters, there's a variety of lifestyles that are represented just in this one picture. So the myth that you have to be a certain way is constantly dispelled as more and more female surgeons join the field. Next slide, please. And I believe in the age-old saying that iron sharpens iron. In our center, in this picture, there is 4 out of the 5 female surgeons, some still in training, some who have gone before us. So we learn from each other in terms of how to cope, surgical techniques, pearls of wisdom on how to balance family life. In the far corner there, you see Dr. Kudzai Munanji. She's also an ACS awardee, and she has been paving the way for us female pediatric surgeons in our unit. And she always does it with a smile, with a helping hand, and she's so humble. Half the time, we're the ones who are introducing her as the first female pediatric surgeon in Zimbabwe. She forgets to mention this, and we sort of ride on her coattails that, yeah, she's the first, but I'm the second. we're in the same league. And she's been trailblazing the path before us. So by promoting more women to join surgery and mentoring more women, we then sharpen each other to become better, and we give each other pearls of wisdom, and not just pearls of wisdom in terms of surgery, but also in just life in general. Next slide, please. Being an awardee and also a member of Women in Surgery in Africa has also afforded me the opportunity to network with other people in other countries. As you can see, I attended one of these conferences back in 2018, and this opens your eyes that you're not the only one. You're not the only one facing the challenges you do. There are other women who are in other countries who have bigger hurdles than you, but they're still smiling as they're going through it, and they share their experiences. And you realize we're not that different after all. We seem to share the same complexities of, okay, how do I get ready for the day? My hair today is like just refused the hairstyle that I wanted to get it into, but I still need to show up for work and I still need to look professional. So you also get tips from other women on what they're doing. And then in the other corner, as the women's surgery in Africa's Zimbabwe, we usually have meetings. And one of the things that I've seen that helps us is in these meetings, we also invite the medical students. In this picture, you see Ms. Musi Mulambo. She's also the only female general surgeon in Zimbabwe at the moment. We have others who've trained, like Dr. Kumirai, who's currently in South Africa. But she always takes the time to mentor the juniors. She gives a talk to them. She always lends a helping hand to them. And I must say, she always looks good while doing it. She's another myth breaker that you can't wear heels as you're a female surgeon, or you can't look professional, or you can't put on as much makeup as you want as a female surgeon. She's constantly breaking those barriers and showing everyone that I have the beauty and I have the brains, but most importantly, I have the skills. Next slide, please. And then one of the things I've benefited from being a scholar as well is I've met great women, the likes of Sherry Wren. I've had the opportunity to personally meet her, and Professor Hillary as well. You see these women, they have such a love for surgery, and they also have such a love for mentoring us, the younger generation. And it's also comforting to find out for them that some of the challenges that we're facing now, they faced them and they put on a brave face. And for them, I can only imagine how hard it was for them when they were just a drop in the ocean. With more women joining surgery, we are now more of a pond in the ocean as opposed to the drop that the Sherry Wrens and the Prof. Hillarys were in their day. And as more people see us in the forefront of the surgical field, which is currently still male dominated, but the effects and perspective of the female voice need to be felt far and wide. Next slide, please. I am a product of many hands. In this picture, I was in Rwanda, and I'd gone for a different course by the COSEXA, the trauma course. And while I was there, I had the opportunity of having this picture taken. And in this picture, I have one of the men who inspired me to join surgery, Professor Muguti, who's the current president of COSEXA. I remember when I was still a third year in surgery, his technique, his touch, he was a gentle giant. And I felt surgery could be for me as well. And then the man next to him, Mr. Samkang, he has been a champion for female surgeons over the years and for COSEXA in general. And on that day, he said to me, you see what these guys have done before you. All the other guys are also graduates from Zimbabwe, including one of the trailblazers in pediatric surgery, Mr. Tungamirai Gwatirisa, who played a huge role in getting me across the finish line in terms of my own training. And he told me, as you can see these guys before you, we want to see you, when you write exams, you need to take the prize for the best in your field. And I laughed. I thought, okay, yes, I'll try. I didn't believe it. I was like, all I want to do is pass. But all the men in this picture, they've touched my life. They've broken barriers in their own fields, but at the same time, none of them ever really pulled me down as a woman. And I've seen that in our country, most of the men, they don't pull the women down. They don't discourage you from joining surgery. They actually welcome you with open arms. And as Mr. Guatri is saying, in our department, we don't have male surgeons and we don't have female surgeons. We just have surgeons, which is one of the things we want as female surgeons. We just want equity. We don't want unfair advantage over the others. We just want a level playing field. Next slide, please. And in this picture, you see Ms. Kudzai Nanji doing a laparoscopy with our mentor, Mr. Mbowe. He's one of the founders of pediatric surgery in Zimbabwe. And it has been such a blessing to have a mentor who's willing to stand beside you for hours on end, teaching you what you need to do, not even caring that he's been holding the camera, is not the one who's being the lead surgeon. So he lets you take the lead. And we need more such men who let you take the lead in surgery, who let you flourish, who let you grow, and who encourage you to be better than what you actually think. And then in the other picture, you see the other two men who I trained with. My final year was not the easiest. I just had a baby. I felt overwhelmed. And at some point, I actually thought of quitting. But these two literally dragged me across the finish line. They forced me to read. They forced me never to give up. And because of them and the entire pediatric surgery team, I moved from being basically a zero in my own eyes to being the top of my class. And I was awarded the best in pediatric surgery for our year. So when you have so many people behind you, pulling you through, who don't care whether you're male or female, it is such an encouragement and it's such a blessing. Next slide, please. Moving forward, we need more women to take up the mantle, to encourage more females to take up surgery, and to just encourage more females that it is possible. You don't have to be stuck in a stereotype. Surgery is not just for men, it's for everyone. And then we need more mental health support for women. As women, we tend to need to vent. It may come across as complaining to some people, but all we need is just someone to listen to as we speak. And at the end of an hour-long talk, we're ready to take the bull by the horns and conquer the world once more. Whereas 10 minutes ago, you'd have seen me in tears. So I believe with more mental health support for women, we'll see more females joining surgery. And we also need just short courses on time management. Simple things like time management will take women they'll take women far in terms of becoming successful surgeons. And financial literacy. A lot of people undervalue the importance of this. And you may work hard, but at the end of 30, 40 years, you have nothing to prove for it. And people will be like, what was the point of you becoming a surgeon to begin with? And moving forward, I believe we need more visibility in terms of social media, surgical societies, that we have women who can do this. And as men, we can support women. And I believe if we recognize more males who are championing females, we will see more women joining surgery. And then I pray that we reach a point where we'll have not just he for she, where the men are championing women, but we'll have she for he, where the men are now actually learning from us women, and they get that finer touch or finesse that comes with being a female. And they can also reproduce it in their work and in their surgery, and not just be butch about everything, but they also have the female perspective. I'm well and truly grateful to ACS for the scholarship they awarded me. I'm truly grateful to COSEXA Surgery in Africa and all the women who've gone before me and all those behind me for pushing me forward as I pull them towards where I am going. Thank you so much.
Dr. Precious, what a superb speech, what a superb presentation, and thank you for sharing your personal story. I would like your permission to use what you quoted. There are no men surgeons, there are no women surgeons, just surgeons in our department. That is the takeaway from this entire webinar as far as I'm concerned. Thank you very much for what you just said. Now that both speakers have finished their presentation, I would like to open the session for the remaining time for some Q&A. I would first like to start with Professor Sanfi. One question we have received. As a scholar, what is the most important leadership lesson you have learned, and how has it proven invaluable?
Oh my goodness, that could be a whole talk in itself. Because the truth is, Professor Bekele, I've learned something from all the people with whom I have worked, from all of my mentors. I've learned from, for example, from John Cameron, the importance of hard work and critical thinking. But then from Dr. Scott Jones, I learned the importance of integrity and having a set of values that have to remain rock solid no matter what's going on around you. So, I think what's important is having more than one mentor, okay? Because as we change and as opportunities present themselves, we have different needs. I have learned about leadership from bad leaders as well as good leaders. And, I think from the good leaders, I've learned the importance of trust between leaders and followers, and walking the talk. It's not enough just to talk. You've got to actually walk the talk. And I think it's also important to today, particularly, I think the best leaders are those who inspire and enable others to succeed. And the best leaders are judged by how they accomplish this, more so than by what they do themselves. And this is important because women are particularly good at working in a collaborative environment. So the leadership skills I think that are important today really help women become good leaders, because we're used to being collaborative versus working in a hierarchy. Does that answer your question?
Yes, Professor Brain, thank you, Sharit Sanfi. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Let me forward another question to Dr. Precious. Dr. Precious, I'm really happy you mentioned how your male colleagues, your male teachers, mentors support along the way. In your opinion, how do you establish networks of both men and women surgeons within COSECSA and other global organizations like the AWS and the ACS? I'm sure Professor Sanfi also would have some words to say about this question.
Okay, that's a great question. And one of the things I've realized in my life is you should never be afraid to ask questions. Most people, they shy away from asking questions. It's usually the best way to begin a relationship, by asking the question, how are you? Where are you from? What do you do? What do you enjoy? So we need people to step out of their comfort zones, especially if you're looking to be mentored. Most of the mentors themselves, they don't have the time to follow up each and every person who approaches them. So it's your job as the mentee to often send an email, send a message. Whenever you get to a conference, use it as an opportunity. If we have more webinars or even a registrar, for example, having all the general surgeons in ACS, knowing who are the general surgeons in the COSEXA, for example, and you have to greet, whether it's via Zoom or even a personal email, sending a personal email, reaching out to another surgeon saying, my name is, I'm interested in this area. Do you have any tips for me, for example? That could also foster relationships both through the men and the women. And I believe there should be more mentorship groups for the male counterparts as well. In the last couple of years, there's been a lot of focus on the women. So as women, we've learned how to network. We have many platforms, HeForShe, Women in Surgery Africa, but there's little structured mentorship for the male counterparts. So if we have a register, for example, someone can reach out to anyone, whether male or female, depending on their accomplishments, and say, I've seen you're the president of ACS. How did you get there? Or I've seen you set up a hospital in Kampala. How did you do it? I want to set up a hospital as well. Do you have any links to sponsorship? And the list is endless then from there as to how you can then increase your network. But most importantly, just ask questions.
Professor Sanfi, a few words?
Yeah, I echo everything Precious has said. You know, Madeleine Albright, the former US Secretary of State, once said that women are good at making friends and not very good at networking, whereas men are good at networking, perhaps not so good at making friends. I don't know if that's true for men, but it certainly was true for me when I would go to the college or any big meeting. All I wanted to do was have dinner with my friends. I hated the cocktail party. So I had to do, as Precious said, get out of my comfort zone and understand the importance of talking to people and just introducing yourself, saying who you are, asking about them. Because when opportunities come on a committee or a job opens, these people will remember, oh yes, I met Dr. Precious at this event and she seems the sort of person we could work with. So networking is really important. But I would also see it as part of mentorship. It's important to bring a resident or junior trainee, a medical student to these events and make sure they're introduced to our peers and encourage them to learn the skills of networking, because there is a skill to it. You want to make sure that you approach somebody in a way that respects their time, that is not invasive or intrusive, and that you're not getting into another conversation. So they're the two things that I would say are important. Learning to network for yourself, but also making sure you bring other people along with you.
Thank you, Professor Sanfi. Let me take this opportunity to acknowledge the presence of Professor Barbara Bass among us. I'm sure all of you know Professor Bass, who was the former president of the ACS and who is one of the pillars of the partnership between the ACS and COSECSA. She has a direct question to Professor Sanfi. Might you share with the group the way others may support this initiative?
Well, it's tempting to ask for money.
Please do. Please do.
So the Scholars Program is a joint partnership between the Association of Women Surgeons Foundation and the American College of Surgeons Foundation through Operation Giving Back. So this, you can say, we can always be supported financially. Women in Surgery Africa has a mentorship program. Anyone can join WISA and volunteer to be a mentor. And I've had the privilege of working with a mentee from Kenya for the past several years, and it's just been a wonderful experience for me, as I know for other people. So I don't know, we were talking at the start whether or not Women in Surgery Africa and the COSEXA meeting will be held in person this year, but I would recommend surgeons here as examiners for COSEXA, and I'm sure Professor Bekele would echo that. And anyone who travels to the COSEXA meeting will then have the opportunity to also participate in the Women in Surgery Africa meeting, which is usually midway through that week. So lots of ways to get involved.
Thank you, Professor Sanfi. This is directly tied to the question posed by Professor Sherry Wren. She asked, how else can ACS and AWS help support training in COSEXA? My short answer to this, Sherry, would be please keep on doing what you're doing. Our trainees, our faculty are benefiting not just from this scholarship, but members of the AWS are helping COSEXA write exam questions in all the 10 training programs we have, the pediatrics, general surgery, orthopedics, cardio. Please keep on doing what you're doing. Many are members of different exam panels, different serious committees of the college. Many are helping us develop application softwares, giving us scholarship, individual scholarships. They don't even want their names mentioned. So please keep on doing what you are doing. That would be my short answer. This question is to Dr. Precious. You talked about the mental health and surgical trainees. And the question is, thank you for talking about support for mental health and well-being. What resources can we provide that would be of the most benefit?
Okay, in terms of resources, like Prof. Hillary said, bullying within the workplace is one of the biggest challenges for women. There's a lot of sexual harassment that goes on. Some women actually need proper psychological support after the harassment that they would have faced. So we need more pamphlets on how to handle bullying, how to handle a difficult, like emotional situations within surgery. We have a lot of sick patients, they may die, and we need that psychological support afterwards. So we need more information in terms of that. And then even just having more people share their stories, their experiences, how they got through the things that they faced, how they got through, like, for example, training during war situation in a country, or training when you don't have enough resources, or training when you are the odd one out in a certain specialty, whether it's because you're female, whether it's because you're Black female, or you have other things that make you stand out in a group. And then we also need even more webinars, which are more interactive, where people actually have this type of situation where you can actually ask what's on your heart. We can have various topics that are discussed across. And we like more people, especially from the international community, to join, as it brings more variety and different perspectives on how to handle certain issues, especially in mental health. And even just getting a proper professional, even as part of COSECSA, having a professional psychiatrist or psychologist who can assist the trainees in their training, so that people don't fall along the way line because they felt it was too much. Not everyone will have a good support structure at home. So if we have more of that, or even that facility for the trainees as well, I think we'll go a long way.
Thank you, Dr. Precious. Thank you so much. The next question, in fact, questions are directed to both Professor Sanfi and Dr. Precious. These are from Dr. Dogian and Dr. Patricia Newman. And both the surgeons are huge supporters of COSECSA. So the question is, aside from the current mentorship and sponsorship efforts with our colleges, what other actionable things can be done to ensure greater enrollment and success of women surgeons and trainees? And Dr. Newman's question is related to this. What would be your wish to equity for women and provide sufficient surgeons for Africa? Let me start by Professor Sanfi and then Dr. Precious.
So, this is a difficult question, because it's when we talk about diversity, and people always ask, how will we know when we get there? And probably the answer is when we stop talking about it. And as Precious said, in her department, there are no women surgeons or male surgeons, there's just surgeons. So I think if the question is, how do we get more surgeons, more women surgeons, we just need to look at the example of the partnership between COSECSA, the American College, and with the AWS for the Women's Scholars Program, because for those of us who have been coming to the COSECSA exams for a number of years, the progress that has been made is extraordinary. So this is a great example of international partnership that works to the benefit of everybody. And I should also acknowledge, as I'm sure you would, Professor Bekele, the support from the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland in this regard as well. So I think in terms of partnership, important for us to listen before we jump in, because we need to know how can we help you. Sometimes we have a misguided idea of what is needed for women surgeons around the world, just based on our own needs, and they may be very different. The resources are maybe different, but also one of the things I have learned from my trips to Africa is that the women surgeons in Africa tend to have much better work-life balance in some ways than in the United States, in large part because perhaps the trainees are more likely to stay close to family when they train. So there's a better support from an extended family. And one of the questions that I saw in the chat asked, how come, what was the explanation for the fact that the early data published by Avril Hutch and others suggested more women stayed in Africa. And I think the closeness of family is a big factor. I don't have any new strategies for increasing the number of surgeons, male and female, in LMICs, except keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Well said. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Precious?
I just want to echo what Prof. Hillary was saying. It's always important to ask the people on the ground what they need. For example, even in African countries, most of us, you have most of the surgical workforce centered within the urban areas and very few in the remote or rural areas. And you may train 1,000 doctors, and of those 1,900 stay within the urban area and not enough disseminate to the rural areas. And one of the main reasons this is because most people, they stay within the urban areas because they believe that's where the money is, and that's how they'll make their livelihood. Because at the end of the day, most people have families to support. So by making it attractive to go to the rural areas, most people then give packages and the like for people to go work in the rural areas. And that has somewhat worked a bit to get people to decentralize. So by asking people, especially the female surgeons, what do they need? I think that's the starting point in finding out how we can further help them. And one thing I noticed after interacting with people from other Western countries especially, I know that there's a huge discrepancy in terms of salaries. The men seem to get paid more than the females. In my country especially, that's not true. Most people are paid according to their level. So maybe even addressing that, like giving more support to the women, like daycare centers that are supporting the, how can I say, the outside life of the surgeon, like having a daycare center that has flexible hours. Like every hospital has a daycare center that closes at 12 midnight, for example, such that a woman who's in theater from 8 to 5 a.m. or from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. can do their neurosurgery case without thinking, child, how am I going to get home to, how am I going to tend to them? And those 4 hours in between cases, you can actually take a break, go spend time with your child. Therefore, you still have that bond with your child. So such support structures, I think, will encourage more women to join surgery. And then to increase surgery trainees in general, we just need to make it more attractive. Bullying goes across board. It's not just the women who are bullied, even the male counterparts are bullied. And they're taught that you need to be tough. When sometimes someone, all they need is just support, like mental support, just someone to actually show them how things are done, not just tell them, I want to see this done by the end of the day, without actually telling them how to do it or how they did it before them, without giving them a proper structure. So I believe these are some of the small ways we can get more people to join surgery and encourage more trainees to take up surgery and get more surgeons to stay within the region. And like Prof. Hillary said, for most women who train in surgery, your family is within the country. And when you're done training, you have no thoughts of leaving because your family is there. So if we have more support structures for the family, for example, how to keep the family intact, we may have better retention of surgeons within the countries.
Thank you, Dr. Precious. Fantastic response. I wish we had 1 more hour to continue. We have lots and lots and lots of questions, brilliant questions, but unfortunately, in the interest of time, we have to stop somewhere. But before we close, there are some questions that are related to COSEXA, which I probably will want to address. As you know, this is a scholarship designed by the ACS and AWS, primarily for COSEXA trainees. The scholarship helps women trainees enter the FCS program. So the trainees need to be registered with COSEXA, have a training position in one of the 128 hospitals across the 20 countries, and then submit their application formally and officially. I must be honest here and say the AWS and ACS have reject one we have presented for scholarship so far. We had agreed on every year, but every time we ask for more, and they've always said yes. So if there are women, young women who want to pursue career in surgery and who want information about the scholarship, please do not hesitate to reach out to me or any of us right after the webinar. And there are many supporters of COSECSA there, among the ACS, among the AWS. We really need your support, as I've earlier said, in development of courses, running different courses for trainees, mentorship, research support, preparation of exams, participating in exams. And for those of you who would want to be fellows of the college, again, please feel free to reach out to me. There are questions about that I've seen. And there are studies we are running at the moment. Particularly, we're trying to set up an alumni structure in terms of retention of our graduates in 2020-21. How are we doing 5 years after we did the first study? Did political unrest contribute to, did political upheavals contribute to migration surgeons outside? We have research going on, and hopefully we will share that with you once it's done. Again, in the interest of time, I must thank both presenters, Professor Sanfi and Dr. Precious, for their fantastic presentations and the responses to the questions raised, and the ACS for organizing such a wonderful webinar and invite me to be part of it. I would also like to thank our active participation in questions. Please contact Tony at the given address if there are any questions to be directed to any one of us or the ACS. Thank you very much, everyone. And this concludes our webinar. Thank you so much.